Keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about what happened at the Maha Kumbh Mela today. The Maha Kumbh stampede has triggered a series of serious questions. How did the tragedy occur? Why did it happen? What's the latest from on the ground? We get you that in just a bit. Here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Is the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky facing a dead end? We tell you why this question has surfaced. Is China using artificial intelligence to control our minds? We get you the complete story and tell you what this is about. All this and more coming up. We're starting off with the latest from India, where tragedy darkened the epic event on the religious and civilizational calendar of the Indian people. And as per the DIG of Maha Kumbh, 30 people have lost their lives, over 90 have been injured in that stampede that broke out at the Maha Kumbh festival in Prayagraj early on Wednesday. The question is, how did the tragedy occur? Why did it happen? Despite the massive administrative arrangements and the security organized for this event, when the administration was able to get things under control in 90 minutes, did the fervor of the devotees go out of control, or was there a mistake somewhere which is being investigated? First things first, we get you stark images just to help you grasp the depth of what happened, the depth of this tragedy, and the pain of those who have suffered the ultimate loss. Millions of fervent pilgrims jostled and ran to take a holy ritual dip at the confluence of the three sacred rivers. Top leaders of the country, including Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, expressed their sorrow and shock to the victims and their families, thus acknowledging that there have been fatalities. But how did what is being popularly called the world's largest religious congregation turn into a tragedy? And who is to blame? Let's first understand what really happened. As per reports, the crowd crush took place during pre-dawn hours, about 1 kilometer from the riverine confluence in Prayagraj. Witnesses reported chaotic scenes breaking out, who also said that one of the worst crushes occurred after large numbers of people went down to the river to bathe, while others were sleeping on the floor around the congested riverbank. And as the crowd surged in different directions, people began to push their way out, and many began to fall to the floor, pushing over barriers and trampling each other. Another crowd crush was reported to have taken place around one of the entrances to the festival. You see, Wednesday marked a particularly significant bathing day, which marked the most auspicious day of the 6-week-long festival, with officials anticipating a record turnout of 100 million devotees at the pilgrimage site. But the question is, were there adequate measures even in place to control an overwhelming crowd that seemed to be swelling by the hour? Meanwhile, as rescue operations are still underway, the Chief Minister, Yogi Adityanath, who has surveilled the situation by himself, said some devotees were seriously injured when they climbed over the barricades. Addressing the media, he also said that the situation is under control, but the crowd pressure remains. From the looks and sound of it, things grew tense pretty quickly and seemed to spiral out of control, as many of those injured were seen being carried on stretchers by security personnel and rescue workers. People's belongings, including blankets and bags, lay strewn around. What was meant to be a scene of grand celebration and joy soon turned into a grim picture of sorrow and mourning, with distraught families seen gathering outside temporary medical centers, searching for missing relatives and loved ones. The tragic incident evoked reactions from several politicians, as the President, Draupadi Murmu, Vice President, also the Home Minister, and many other leaders, as well as opposition leaders across parties, offered their condolences. Prime Minister Modi also commented on the incident, calling it extremely sad. You see, the Kumbh Mela has been heavily promoted by Prime Minister Modi himself, who had earlier praised the extraordinary and unforgettable crowds that were attending the festival. And this time around, more than 400 million people were expected to attend the festivities held over 45 days. Then how did such a tragedy even take place? The questions are, is it a case of administrative mismanagement? Did the authorities underestimate the turnout, which continued to swell after Tuesday night? Many have even blamed the VIP culture that grants special access to the privileged few who are prioritized over the public. As per reports, even as on Tuesday, the authorities issued an advisory urging visitors to follow safety protocols and instructed them to use designated lanes, maintain order at barricades, and avoid lingering at the ghats after bathing. It clearly wasn't enough, it seems, as the police struggled to regain control over the surging crowd. We are talking about real people here who had their near and dear ones injured or feared to be dead in the incident. The question is, who will take responsibility? A tragedy that comes with a grave human cost. And more importantly, what can be done to avert such incidents in the future? With 2 more weeks to go for the festival, we will have to wait and watch for these answers. We now shift our focus to Ukraine. After nearly 3 years of relentless Russian assault, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky faces a dead end. We are not the ones saying that. A pro-Russian Ukrainian, Viktor Medvedchuk, has recently made that comment. Medvedchuk says that by signing a decree in 2022 that completely banned talks with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, Zelensky has placed himself in a deadlock. While Medvedchuk has his own personal agenda in making that statement, the state of the conflict and Ukraine, as it stands right now, makes it hard to disagree with Medvedchuk in a way. Have a look at these visuals now coming up on your screen. This is Ukraine today, battered by war, hoping for a US-initiated peace deal. Today, Russia has claimed to have captured one more settlement in Ukraine's Kharkiv. Its troops seized a place called Devotees. The Russians, in fact, are building on their momentum in eastern Ukraine, and the capture of this settlement is yet another step in their grinding push to conquer the entire Donetsk region. In addition to capturing this part, the Russian army also hit Ukrainian forces as well as military equipment in multiple directions, including Donetsk, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. In Russia's Kursk region, Ukraine reportedly lost more than 280 soldiers while trying to hold on to hard-won land. On the battlefield, as Russia maintains the upper hand, Ukraine is growing desperate, and in its desperation, Ukraine launched drones targeting oil and power facilities in western parts of Russia on Wednesday. According to reports, as a result of Ukrainian drone attack, an oil refinery caught fire in a place called Nizhny Novgorod, located east of Moscow. Meanwhile, in the western region of Smolensk, bordering Belarus, a massive drone attack was reported that even destroyed air defense systems. Dozens more Ukrainian drones targeted Bryansk region, bordering Ukraine, and the Tver region, bordering Moscow. Meanwhile, several combat engagements continue to take place at the same time across the Ukrainian front line. According to the latest information, Ukraine's army has been pushed back over the past year, outgunned and outmanned by Russia across the 1,000-kilometer front line. Suffice to say, the Ukraine nightmare is showing no signs of settling down. It has reached a dead end, it seems. But that's a burden only for Ukraine. You see, on Tuesday, Putin said that peace talks with Ukraine are possible, but not with Zelensky. That's right. Putin has ruled out speaking directly with the Ukrainian president. And why is that? Because according to Russia, Zelensky is quite literally illegitimate. During an interview with a Russian journalist, Pavel Zarubin, Putin said that Zelensky could participate in possible talks with Moscow if he wishes to, but that he lacks the legitimacy to actually sign a peace deal. But that's not even all. According to Putin, negotiating with the de facto Ukrainian leadership will not have any legal meaning, because Kiev has explicitly banned itself from talks with Moscow. And he is not wrong, by the way. In 2022, Zelensky, whose presidential term officially last year, issued a decree. His decree prohibited talks with Russia and with President Vladimir Putin specifically. And all signs indicate that that decree remains in effect. Just last week, Zelensky claimed that the ban applies to all Ukrainian officials except himself. But the original decree did not specify who is allowed and who is not allowed to talk to Russia. It simply stated that such negotiations were quote-unquote impossible. Which then brings us to the question, is Zelensky going to walk back on that decree? And given the fact that his term has ended, would such a decision even be legally valid? Because you see, elections have not been held in Ukraine since Russia started the war. And because of the war, Ukraine is still under martial law, during which the Ukrainian constitution does not allow elections. Of course, Zelensky reacted to Putin's statement by accusing the Russian president of being afraid of negotiations. Zelensky said that Putin was using quote-unquote cynical tricks to prolong the nearly 3-year war. He says that there was a chance to achieve real peace and warned against Ukraine being excluded from any potential peace talks between Russia and the United States, which then brings things back to square one in a way. Are peace talks even possible without Zelensky? Trump, on his part, is pushing for a deal to end the war. He had promised to end it within 24 hours, remember, of taking office, but it has been almost 10 days since he took office. And that promise is looking difficult to hold somewhat. Trump appears to think he can simply persuade Putin into a fair settlement by, in a way, threatening to unleash economic warfare. But whether they help or not will decide Ukraine's fate and what happens. It will also say a lot about whether Trump is indeed the great deal maker he claims to be. And as for Ukraine, and especially Zelensky, there are no good options left. Zelensky has said Ukraine will accept nothing less than the return of all its territory, including Crimea, annexed by Russia in 2014. But with the Ukraine frontline collapsing and with Russia occupying about 20% of the country, are those goals achievable anymore? And if negotiating with Putin is the only way forward, is Ukraine even ready to surrender territory to Russia? So then, how long can Ukraine actually withstand the war? We now delve into a pressing concern, the use of artificial intelligence to influence global perceptions and human minds in a way. The emergence of Chinese AI platforms like DeepSeek and the widely used ChatGPT have sparked massive debates about information control and the potential for cognitive manipulation. Traditionally, individuals sought knowledge through books, and more recently, the internet. These sources, while vast, allowed readers to cross-reference and form independent judgments. However, the future points towards a reliance on AI-driven platforms for information dissemination, raising concerns about the objectivity and the integrity of the information provided. DeepSeek, a Chinese AI startup, recently launched its latest model, R1. Reportedly, it can perform on par with leading US models like OpenAI's ChatGPT while costing significantly less to develop. And now it's important to note here that all AI chatbots like DeepSeek and ChatGPT have the same data collection mechanism and collate information globally. And they all come with their own set of issues. As per reports, DeepSeek's responses are influenced by Chinese government perspectives. For example, when queried about Taiwan's status, DeepSeek asserts that Taiwan is part of China, reflecting Beijing's official stance. Moreover, DeepSeek avoids discussing topics like the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. When asked about this event, the AI responds, quote unquote, "Sorry, I'm not sure how to approach this type of question yet." The 1989 crackdown, remember, saw Chinese troops open fire on student-led pro-democracy protesters in Beijing's Tiananmen Square, resulting in hundreds of deaths. And the issue is not just limited to DeepSeek. As per reports, both DeepSeek and ChatGPT mistakenly said Joe Biden was the US president whose term ended last week. While a 2024 study by Purdue University found ChatGPT answered computer programming questions incorrectly 52% of the time. 52%. More than half the answers were incorrect. Can you believe that? These instances basically highlight the potential for AI to, in a way, present skewed information, at times aligning with specific government narratives. According to experts, as future generations increasingly depend on AI for information, there is a risk of exposure to biased or even incomplete perspectives. The implications extend beyond individual understanding, and experts warn that future conflicts may center on information warfare, where controlling narratives becomes as crucial as traditional military might. As per reports, governments around the world are realizing the power of AI in shaping public perception. And if AI becomes the main source of information, what stops any government really from tweaking the algorithms to serve its own interests? AI platforms capable of shaping public opinion could serve as tools in these information battles. So where do we even go from here? While AI may offer advancements, it is important to approach these tools critically. It's not a substitute for critical thinking. We must be vigilant and question where our information comes from and the potential biases they may carry, and recognize the risks of allowing AI platforms to dictate what is fact and what's fiction. Because in the end, the real danger is not AI itself. The real danger is an uninformed society that blindly trusts it.
I will end the practice of catch and release.
The Trump administration is ramping up its immigration enforcement efforts. Let's tell you about the latest. As per reports, U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined officers in an immigration raid in New York City, where several individuals were taken into custody. This high-profile operation is reportedly part of the administration's aggressive push to crack down on illegal immigration, a cornerstone of Donald Trump's second term. Noem posted footage and photos of the operation on social media, stating that the Trump administration is, quote-unquote, making our streets safe. The operation in New York reportedly involved agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known simply as ICE, which normally focuses on transnational crime, including human trafficking, child exploitation, and drug smuggling, as well as personnel from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, that's DEA. The U.S. government's action in New York left many New York residents divided.
This country was built on immigrants. I mean, I'm Native American, African American. My family has been here since the 1830s. I can trace my family back from the 1830s. And honestly, we wouldn't have Europeans here. We wouldn't have Trump here. We wouldn't have half of the people we know of as Americans here if there weren't immigrants first.
Since returning to office, Donald Trump has wasted no time issuing executive orders to tackle illegal immigration. And one of his first acts on the 20th of January was to put an immediate stop to illegal border crossings and begin the deportation of what he calls, quote unquote, millions and millions of criminal aliens. And in his inaugural address, he declared the US-Mexico border crisis a national emergency, describing illegal immigration as an invasion that must be stopped at all costs. And the numbers, by the way, speak for themselves. As per the ICE reports, arrests have surged dramatically under Trump's leadership. US federal agents are now detaining between 1,000 and 1,200 people daily, a staggering increase from the 2024 average of just over 300 arrests per day. These crackdowns are happening nationwide, with major operations also taking place in parts like Chicago. At the heart of Trump's immigration strategy is his decision to re-implement strict border control policies. The Trump administration has reinstated the controversial Remain in Mexico program, ended catch and release practices, and accelerated construction on the US-Mexico border wall. The White House press secretary, in fact, reinforced Trump's stance, stating that the administration is committed to stopping illegal immigration once and for all.
President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration. Additionally, President Trump signed an executive order to end catch and release and finish construction of his effective border wall.
But there's more. The Trump administration is also deploying U.S. Marines to reinforce the U.S.-Mexico border. Military personnel have been stationed between Tijuana, Mexico, and San Diego, California, where they are setting up barbed wire fortifications to prevent unauthorized crossings. And not everyone is on board with Trump's immigration policies. In San Francisco, leaders are pushing back. Its mayor, in fact, flanked by city officials, addressed the public, reaffirming San Francisco's commitment to protecting immigrants.
In San Francisco, we value our immigrant communities. We recognize your contributions to our city, and we stand with you. You belong here.
A similar response was also echoed in Chicago, where its mayor, Brandon Johnson, criticized Trump's approach. Johnson said if Trump truly is serious about fixing the immigration system, he would support bipartisan legislation, and accused Trump of using the immigration issue to fuel fear and division.
If he was really serious about transforming our immigration system in this country, he would pass a law. There's a bipartisan law right now on the Senate side that would provide more border support, more judges to move asylum cases faster, to create pathways to citizenship. He's not doing it because he wants to stoke fear into people.
The growing political battle over immigration is also playing out in the US pop culture. Madonna took to social media to support the LGBTQ+ community amid the uncertainty of their rights in the country. A post from her read, and I'm quoting, "It's so sad to watch our new government slowly dismantling all the freedoms we have been fighting for and won over the years. Don't give up the fight," quote unquote. While Trump supporters say he is restoring law and order, his opponents argue that he is tearing communities apart. A dark void has torn open in our star's surface, presenting an unprecedented threat to our planet's technological infrastructure. Scientists are warning this colossal hole, coronal hole, spanning the width of 60 Earths, could unleash chaos on the planet's magnetic field. Our next report telling you more.
The sun, the great guardian of our solar system, burns with an unrelenting fire, sustaining all life on Earth. For billions of years, the celestial heartbeat of our existence has been a steady source of warmth and energy. But even the sun has tempers, and right now, it is seething with fury. A colossal gaping hole, 800,000 kilometers wide, has opened up on its surface. These images show the hole large enough to swallow at least 60 Earths. This vast void, known as a coronal hole, is unleashing torrents of solar wind, blasting charged particles directly toward our planet. Scientists warn this could trigger powerful geomagnetic storms, disrupting satellites, power grids, and radio communications. Initial predictions suggest moderate geomagnetic storms Experts say the solar wind's intensity has thus far remained relatively subdued. This enormous coronal hole, an unusually large one for this phase of the solar cycle, appeared near the sun's equator. Unlike the bright, fiery surface of the sun, coronal holes appear as dark patches. They are cooler, less dense regions where the sun's magnetic field has opened, allowing high-speed solar wind to escape. Charged particles from this solar wind are racing toward Earth. While initial forecasts suggested a moderate G2 geomagnetic storm, early readings indicate a weaker impact so far. But experts sound a note of caution: the emergence of a coronal hole at the equator. So close to solar maximum is an anomaly, one that space scientists are scrambling to understand. With the sun growing more unpredictable, Earth braces for what could come next.
All stations L40 step-on boosters को प्रज्वलित 3, 2, 1 L40 stages are ignited. उत्थापन GSLV F-15 रॉकेट का चारों L40s तथा कोर बूस्टर S-139 वर्तमान में प्रज्वलित हैं.
And the mission is completed.
Its orbit and ISRO basking in the jubilation and glory with the success.
India's space agency ISRO achieved a special milestone today. It launched its 100th rocket. And it's not just the fact that this is the 100th that makes this particular mission special. So is the satellite that it carries on this mission. Now, these are landmark pictures of the 420-ton GSLV Mark II rocket lifting off from India's Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. In fact, it was the 17th satellite launch mission of the GSLV Mark II and also the 8th flight of this particular variant with an indigenous cryogenic stage. And of course, a celebration of ISRO's 100th overall mission. Also, the satellite on board is special as well. The GSLV F-15 vehicle carried the NVS-02 satellite. It's the second in a series of 5 Indian-built navigation satellites meant to serve civilian and defense users. So how exactly does the indigenous NVS-02 benefit all of us? NVS satellites offer a service called NAVIC, N-A-V-I-C. It stands for Navigation with Indian Constellation. NAVIC is India's independent regional navigation satellite system designed to provide accurate position, velocity, and timing services to users in India and its vicinity. While GPS and GLONASS are available globally, India's NAVIC will only be available in the Indian mainland and about 1,500 kilometers beyond India's shores. While 2 NVS series satellites are in orbit now, ISRO intends to launch 3 more in the coming years. And today's launch also marks 2 firsts. It is India's first launch mission of 2025 and also the first launch mission under the leadership of the ISRO chief. WION's principal correspondent, Siddharth MP, caught up with the ISRO chief to find out more about ISRO's top priorities and the upcoming missions.
So for you, it's a century on debut. On your first launch, you have a century launch. And also this is 40 years of your service for ISRO. How does it feel for you?
It is a great, exciting moment. In fact, when I joined ISRO, 4 SLV rockets were completed. So I joined in the ASLV activities. That means out of this 100, I had the opportunity to work in a smaller level and in a bigger level for almost 96 missions. So it is a great journey. I'm going to complete on 31st, 41 years of service in ISRO. It's a great feeling and great journey.
Right. So as chairman, what are your top priorities, be it rockets, be it satellites, commercialization?
My top priorities, it is not only it's the organization top priorities are accelerating the approved projects like Chandrayaan 4, Chandrayaan 5, new next generation launcher development, space station development and the new technology development, accelerating the approved projects including third launch pad and executing the approved systems like we have to commission this NAVIC system, so we have to place some more satellites and we have to serve the common man through the disaster warning and mitigation, through the communication, through the earth observation and resource management. Those satellites, whatever is required, we have to do. And then new technology we are developing. For example, one of the technology I can tell, electric propulsion, which is 4 times or 5 times efficient than the chemical propulsion. So we are going to demonstrate in a TDS mission. And Honorable Prime Minister vision is very clear. He has rolled out the space sector reform because currently we are having, including the satellite, 57 satellites in the service. And our requirement is huge. In fact, in another 3 years, this number has to become 3 times. And so towards that, he has rolled out the space sector reform. So we have to handhold the industries. So like that, we are going to work towards the vision given by Honorable Prime Minister in executing the work and make in the advanced technology for the common service of the common man.
Our next story has far-reaching implications for the United Kingdom. Britain's last permanent military foothold in Southeast Asia is under serious threat. In fact, a new report warns that the UK's military presence in Brunei, a tiny but strategically crucial country, is at quote-unquote substantial risk due to China's growing influence. In fact, the report further states that if Beijing succeeds in swaying Brunei's leadership, the consequences could be devastating, not just for Britain, but also for the US defense of Taiwan. Just for context here, China has been vocal about invading Taiwan in 2027, which it claims as part of its territory. Now, where does Brunei come into all of this? You see, Brunei is strategically located on routes connecting American bases in the Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Australia. If China controls Brunei, it could potentially impact these routes and could severely undermine America's strategic position in the region and even put the entire Anglo-American alliance under strain. So what is the main thing that is preventing this from happening right now? Brunei has a major British military base, home to around 900 UK troops, including a battalion of Gurkhas. For more than 6 decades now, this base has been a vital training ground for UK Special Air Service soldiers. And it's also a logistical hub for British Navy ships. But now Beijing is making its move. As per reports, China has been steadily deepening its ties with Brunei through military exercises, high-level meetings, and economic investments. Now, if Brunei were to ask British forces to leave and instead invite Chinese troops in, it would deliver a massive blow to Western interests. According to the report titled "The Geopolitical Vulnerabilities of the UK's International Military Partnerships," China has been playing the long game. The UK's military presence in Brunei has largely depended on the personal support of the Sultan, a graduate of the British Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. The report states that with the Sultan now 78 years old and China aggressively expanding its influence, the stability of this arrangement is no longer guaranteed. The report by the Adarga Research Institute and the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change also states that the UK has minimal trade with Brunei, so little in fact that Brunei ranks as Britain's 136th largest trading partner. And by contrast, China's trade with Brunei is 22 times greater. And it's not just about trade. China has reportedly been funding roads, bridges, even a massive oil refinery in Brunei, embedding itself into the country's economy and infrastructure. In 2024, Brunei's foreign minister visited Beijing and referred to China as a quote-unquote good friend, reportedly expressing hope for China to take on a bigger role in regional affairs. So if the UK loses its military foothold in Brunei, it won't just be about losing a base, it will be about losing a critical asset in the global balance of power. The UK Navy's access to strategic waters would take a hit. More importantly, China's expanding footprint in Brunei could give it a stronger position in the South China Sea, bringing its military forces even closer. So what's the UK's plan really? Will Britain fight to maintain its military influence in Brunei, or will it allow China to take over? Or are we simply witnessing the slow but steady erosion of British power in the Indo-Pacific region? And after being stuck to the seafloor for decades, the world's largest iceberg, A23A, has broken free. And on the move, it's heading straight for a remote British island. Well, humans are out of harm's way, but penguins and seals are in danger. Our next story getting you the details.
In a heart-stopping development, the world's largest and most ancient iceberg is bearing down on South Georgia Island, threatening to transform this pristine wildlife sanctuary into a frozen graveyard. This colossal behemoth of ice, weighing 1 trillion tons, has broken free from its decades-long Antarctic moorings and is now on an unstoppable collision course with the remote British territory. Experts predict the iceberg named A23A's impact within 2 to 4 weeks, but uncertainty lingers. The Southern Ocean's currents may divert the iceberg, or they may drive it straight into the island's fragile waters. Either way, its looming presence casts a shadow over the region. Scientists warn it risks disrupting feeding for baby penguins and seals.
So this iceberg is roughly 1 trillion tonnes of fresh water, which can have a really significant local effect on both the oceanography, the physics, and the biology and biogeochemistry. On a larger scale though, we know that the melting of the Antarctic ice shelves is basically allowing more of the ice on the Antarctic continent to flow into the ocean, which increases sea level. So the biggest uncertainty for future sea level is really what the Antarctic will do.
For now, human shipping routes remain unaffected. Large vessels can track and avoid the iceberg, but once it breaks apart, smaller, untraceable chunks will scatter, posing unseen hazards for years. The iceberg's creation predates the modern climate crisis, but its journey is a stark reminder: Antarctica is changing. Warmer oceans, melting ice sheets, and shifting currents mean more behemoths like A23A will be unleashed in the future. The question is not if, but when the next one will come.
They say watch what you eat. Well, we are saying watch what you consume on social media. Because your favorite influencer could land you in trouble or even in the hospital. If you don't believe us, let's tell you the story of a Florida man who followed online advice to eat only meat and dairy. And that landed him in the hospital with cholesterol oozing out of his skin. You're hearing that correctly. A Florida man in his 40s who followed a carnivore diet ended up in the hospital with cholesterol oozing out of his body. He told the doctors that he ate 6 to 9 pounds of cheese, sticks of butter, hamburgers every day. Now, if you weren't aware, a carnivore diet, also known as a zero-carb diet, is a high-protein fat diet in which only animal products such as meat, eggs, dairy are consumed. He ate a high-fat, meat-heavy diet after taking advice from the internet. The diet was meant to help him manage his weight and improve his overall well-being. And for a while, it did. He lost weight, increased his energy, and achieved improved mental clarity. He seemed to achieve his goals but developed complex side effects in his body. This man in Florida followed the carnivore diet for about 8 months. Last spring, he showed up at the hospital with smooth, yellowish nodules on his palms, elbows, soles of his feet. And it turned out that his cholesterol levels exceeded 1000 mg per deciliter. That's far higher than his baseline level, by the way. For context, normal cholesterol ranges for adults are below 200 mg, which is 5 times lower than what this man had. 5 times. Now, his case has been published in JAMA Cardiology. The doctors diagnosed him with a condition in which cholesterol deposits build up in the skin. Now, this condition occurs in about 1% of women, 0.3% of men, usually appearing as yellow growths on the eyelids near the nose. While it's harmless in itself, it can indicate that the person is very likely to develop heart disease or have a heart attack in the future. The body needs cholesterol to build cells and make vitamins and certain hormones, but too much of it can cause fat to collect in the arteries, increasing the risk of heart attack and stroke. But the body also makes its own cholesterol in the liver, typically enough for survival. Meat and dairy products, which are often recommended in high-protein diets like the one this man consumed, are also high in cholesterol. Now, this Florida man's story has become a cautionary tale. It's also a reminder that your diet can affect your cholesterol levels, and that's why it's very important to manage it. It's also a warning sign for both doctors and people considering these kinds of diets. Not everyone can tolerate these diets, and not everything you read or hear online is accurate, reliable, or beneficial for you. And before we get to our next story, let me ask you a question. Can you imagine babies being born without mothers? How is that even possible, you might be wondering, right? And why are we even asking that question? Now, wait till you hear about what's happened. Chinese scientists have created a mouse with 2 fathers. Yes, a mouse with 2 fathers. And how did they do that? Through a series of genetic edits, basically combining genetic material from 2 males to create embryos that inherited no DNA from a female. Now, this breakthrough has far-reaching implications. Let's tell you this. To put it simply, this is a technique that may one day allow gay men to have children biologically related to both parents. This is hugely significant. And let's also tell you that this is not the first time we are hearing about motherless mice. Last year itself, a breakthrough was presented at a conference in London. Katsuhiko Hayashi from Kyushu University in Japan spoke about it at the 3rd International Summit on Human Genome Editing. And years ago, 12 mouse pups were created after fertilizing eggs that were derived from male cells, but they could not breathe properly and did not survive. But the mice created in the breakthrough that we're talking about, that came, were actually healthy. And how were they created? by converting male cells into eggs. Basically, a skin cell from a male mouse was reprogrammed to convert it into a stem cell. And as we learned in biology lessons, male cells have XY chromosomes. Female eggs have XX chromosomes. But the breakthrough involved devising a method to do away with the Y chromosome and then replace it with an X chromosome. So it could basically become an egg. After motherless mice, will we soon see motherless babies, motherless children? Experts have cautioned that significant technical, even ethical barriers must be overcome. But these are very significant breakthroughs and developments. Imagine the implications. Gay men could have biological children in the future. All of these steps matter, and they've also meant that a kind of infertility in women could be cured. The Turner syndrome, for example, it happens due to abnormalities related to chromosomes. These breakthroughs could change the way we look at human reproduction. Up next are dramatic images of a dragon dance during a Spring Festival event at an amusement park in China's capital. Take a look. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate tracker on WION World is One.
After killing a governor, a military chief, and foreign peacekeepers, the dreaded M23 rebels force advance into Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The United Nations raises alarm. Nigeria's authorities officially declare the Lakurawa armed group that flogs people for listening to music a terrorist organization and bans it across the country. Lakurawa is a new militant group that carries out attacks targeting local communities in northwestern Nigeria and across the border with Niger. And Japanese adventurer Gump Suzuki arrives in Cape Town at the end of a more than 6,000-kilometer journey across Africa while pulling a rickshaw. That's at these times on World of Africa. On WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in. India's Budget 2025 is here. Will it fuel growth or deepen inflation's bite? Will it support the rupee and markets? From tax reforms to middle-class relief, we decode what's in it for you. Stay ahead with our expert analysis and global perspective.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. This is WION World is One. We're glad you're watching. Time now for Pulse. The headlines. A pre-dawn stampede at the world's largest religious gathering kills at least 30 people in India's Prayagraj. 90 people are injured after a surging crowd spilled out and trampled bystanders, at the Maha Kumbh Mela. Israel says 11 more hostages held in Gaza, including 5 Thais, will be freed over 2 days this week as part of a fragile Gaza ceasefire.